Today we celebrate fourth Sunday in Ordinary Time. We have just celebrated the feast of the baptism of the Lord. So naturally, the liturgical sense is that Jesus is beginning his public ministry. When you read the four Gospels, it goes without saying that each of the evangelists, Mark, Luke, Matthew, and John, they have their different presentations of the first events in the mission or the public ministry of Jesus. Now, when you read the Gospel of Mark today, chapter 1, verses 21 to 28, which is the reading for today, we find Jesus, as he begins his ministry, he is encountering the evil spirit in a man. So naturally, when you talk about the evil spirit, we use the word the devil in the man. Now, in the 21st century, my dear friends, there are people who believe in the evil spirits and the devil, and there are people who do not believe in the devil. Now, it can happen that one can make the mistake of saying that there is no devil, there is no evil, there is nothing to be called evil. That's one extreme. The other extreme is where everything is devilish, everything is evil. There is Satan, there is evil power. I cannot do anything because my house is charmed by the devil. My family is charmed by the devil. That's another extreme. But anyway, as believers, as followers of Christ, what are we to understand in terms of the mystery of evil? My dear friends, when you reflect on this very complex subject of the devil or the evil spirits or evil in itself, we need to somehow make a distinction between what is evil and what is not evil. The great writer Bertrand Russell, who made the distinction between the tragedy and evil, he says, the tragedies are part and parcel of life because we are living in a finite world where we are limited by our very physical nature. The tragedies are always going to be there. So therefore, Bertrand Russell says, when you have tragedies like the tragedy of death, the tragedy of sickness, the tragedy of a pandemic, the tragedy of accidents, this is part and parcel of being who we are, because we are finite beings, Bertrand Russell says. So therefore, tragedies are always going to be there. But evil is definitely different from the tragedies. For example, when I have evil thoughts, evil intentions of killing someone, for example, in Nazi Germany, those who wanted to kill all the Jews, or for example, Hitler. Now, there was evil in that man, in that community, in that entire nation. The evil of discrimination, the evil of genocide. So therefore, the tragedies are different from evil, and evil is different from tragedies. Now, what we see here today in the gospel is that Jesus is driving out an evil spirit in a man. So the question can be asked, how does evil come? Now, there are theological explanations that evil is unavoidable, evil is a mystery, we don't understand evil. It's definitely not an academic question, because academically, intellectually, we can talk about this whole problem of evil in so many different levels, in so many different discussions, but may not necessarily come to an end or a conclusive understanding of the problem of evil. It's definitely an existential problem because we all do encounter evil within ourselves. We as individuals, we do have evil because we have to believe in evil, because if we believe in good, so we also have to believe in evil, because if there is no good, there is no evil. If there is no evil, there is no good. In a way, if you believe in God, you also have to believe or acknowledge that there is evil. So it's the opposite of what is good, opposite of what is benign. So now, when you try to understand the mystery of evil, which Jesus encounters today, what is foundationally true is that the evil is to be found within. We all do have it within ourselves. In another text in the Gospels, we also find Jesus saying the evil comes from within. Fornication comes from within. The adultery comes from within. So the evil that Jesus talks about, that Jesus is driving out, is within ourselves. So then the question is, how does evil come to us? How is it that evil is part and parcel of our very being, from within ourselves? The great psychologist Carl Jung, who was one of the co-founders of the science of psychology, identified this entire human existential problem of evil, and he calls it the shadow. He says, within each and every one of us, within entire creation or the world that we live in, there is the power of darkness, where there is evil thoughts, evil in order to murder people, evil in order to destroy another person, the evil that is within us that can completely overtake us, that we do destructive things to ourselves and to others, that comes from within. So Jung calls this the presence of the shadow. What he says is that we as human beings, because we live in this human world, because of our interactions with our families, our adults, our teachers, the social reality, we carry within ourselves the wounded part of our very being, which he calls the shadow. And that being is within, and that has to be encountered by us in order to come out of the clutches of the evil that is within. So therefore he says, in order to drive out the evil within, you have to be able to recognize and acknowledge the evil. And so therefore you become more and more conscious of the evil that is within. The encounter that Jesus has today in the gospel is that he was man. Jesus, beginning his ministry, was full of the goodness that was within himself. So therefore the goodness that was within him encounters the evil spirit in another man. So the evil has to be encountered by the power of the goodness that happened in the encounter today in the gospel. But for you and for me, my dear friends, in order to be truly, authentically holy, we have to acknowledge the fact that we all carry the presence of good and the presence of evil within. So the more I become good and holy, the more I need to be open to the presence of the evil. And that is exactly where healing comes, because in this encounter of the gospel today, Jesus, the symbol of all goodness, encounters the presence of the evil in another man. So the good that was within him was able to resurrect the evil that was in the other and save that man. So in another way, in another sense, my dear friends, overcoming the evil within myself is to happen by awakening the goodness that is within me and being able to acknowledge that evil within me will be the first step in healing ourselves.